A terror never seen before has assaulted the Bebop. Caught by the venomous fangs of the unseen enemy, another victim falls. No! Who?
I love how the show is heavily influenced by the history of film, but more noticeably, American films due to the show's vast array of film genres. I think this is the very reason why many suggest Cowboy Bebop is the perfect starting point if you're new to anime, since its combination of genres allow it to appeal to a wide range of audiences. Following the codes and conventions of these genres also allows the show to separate itself from the unusual tropes that are known to make it difficult for newcomers to become interested in traditional anime. You can almost consider the show a late 90s Hollywood production that disguises itself as an anime. The show implements the concept of generic hybridity, or in other words, cross-genre, by either mixing genres of film across its history and culture, or by paying tribute and homage to certain genres in certain episodes. This results in an unlikely combination of genres such as the African-American leads of blaxploitation paired with the rural and conflict-filled environments of westerns.
You're not getting away from me, Domino!
The seeking of stable, practical love between two people of romance, paired with the impractical, chaotic worlds of science fiction.
Queuing up and I won't let them.
And the gritty, serious visual style and tone of film noir, paired with the light-hearted, comedic worlds of comedy. These juxtapositions of genre in each of the show's episodes ensures that we are constantly engaged throughout their 22-minute duration. Once we constantly consume media of the same genre, it eventually becomes stale, almost tasteless. We begin to become accustomed to the genre's typical codes and conventions and structures. This can lead to a decline in engagement as our prior experiences of the genre end up shaping our new experiences, prompting us to assume what may or may not occur. This is where Cowboy Bebop's dramatic juxtaposition of genres highlights its strength. It completely avoids this problem that the majority of other works of media suffer from. This strength in genre is best conveyed in episode 1 of the show. The very first shot after its intro is a 25-second tilting shot. It serves the purpose of acting as an establishment of the show's world that the characters inhabit. During this extensive tilt, we are presented with the show's setting of outer space, the planet Mars, and ships traveling through a stargate, for it to then suddenly fade to a shot of the Bebop ship. This setting and machinery informs us that we are currently watching a work of pure science fiction, as they are both expected codes of the genre, while codes of other genres are nowhere to be found as of yet. Because of these codes, audiences who are unfamiliar with the show, or first-time viewers, would be misled, leading to assume that the show's narrative revolves around some type of presentable hero who will save the galaxy from a large threat, as the majority of current and former works of science fiction possess this very cliché convention. This assumption of genre is completely thrown out of the door the moment we see Spike.
Hey, Spike!
His character design fails to embody the presentable appearance that the audience would have crafted in their heads. His hair is a complete mess, a complete contrast to the refined hair of male leads in science fiction media. Sure, Spike's physically fit, but he doesn't possess the muscle of the generic science fiction protagonist. The audience's expectations continue to be brutally destroyed, witnessing Spike practicing martial arts. Martial arts isn't even something we would see in a science fiction film. It's foreign. It's instead its own separate genre with its own separate codes and conventions, further supporting how the show implements cross-genre. Once we witness Spike depart the Bebop ship, the visual identity of former and current science fiction films forms the expectations that he will arrive on some sort of futuristic planet. But yet again, our assumptions are completely rejected. The first shot we see of this planet is not some fancy appearing building or piece of technology, but a shot of an average, boring street sign. Even the languages on the signs break our expectations. It possesses languages from all across the world instead of using some made-up foreign language that science fiction media is known to implement. Cross-genre is further evident as we progress through this planet, through the gritty noir-inspired look of the buildings and structures, juxtaposed to the Western-inspired look of the inside of the bar. Fast-tracked to the end of the episode, Western is yet again seen within this hybridity of genres. The final confrontation between Spike and Asimov evokes the high noon standoff seen in various Western films, achieved through the framing and blocking of the two characters. But the fabulous outfit that Spike is seen wearing and the witty banter between the two characters evokes the genre of comedy.
You look surprised.
You look ridiculous in that outfit.
You trust your eyes too much, Asimov. You're not a chameleon, you know. You can't see everywhere at once.
This is quickly juxtaposed as the episode reverts back to the genre of science fiction, seen through the dogfight-inspired chase scene. The show, most notably, rejects the conventions of science fiction genre in its last episode. Sure, Spike finally kills Vicious, but at what cost? Spike does not make it out alive unlike the typical science fiction hero, nor does he get the girl, as Julia is also murdered. To sum it all up, the show intertwines and jumps between various genres of media in order to increase our overall engagement. This ensures that its visuals and story elements fail to bore us through predictability, always keeping us guessing when our assumptions are constantly rejected, whether we like it or not.
Things took a turn for the unexpected. Well, actually, this story doesn't go anywhere. At first glance, it's pointless. The actions are on a small scale, and the ending is forced.
I love how the show presents its narrative in an episodic format, which it really takes advantage of. The typical episode of Cowboy Bebop implements the now widely used television show structure some like to dub the villain of the week, or in the show's case, the bounty of the week, where each episode is isolated from one another and as a result, never really reference or relate to each other. Whereas superhero television shows of today such as CW's The Flash, I assume it still does this because I gave up on that show a long time ago. Use this episodic structure for episodes deemed that of filler, introducing a tedious random villain that has no relation to the show's overarching plot. Cowboy Bebop completely rejects the structure as a method of poor and lazy storytelling. It instead implements this structure as a means of conveying the show's central theme of one's inescapable past. Each unrelated bounty episode is simply a small instance of what the characters' lives have now become due to the Bebop team using these unrelated bounties as a means of preoccupying themselves from the traumatic past. Similar to how we as an audience are simply witnessing the lives of Spike, Jet, and Faye play out on the screen, the Bebop team are too also onlookers as their experiences of the past tell them to simply do so. These experiences allow the team to comprehend that it's not wise to get too involved with the bounty heads on an emotional level, as it would add to the weight that they are already carrying. I personally believe Session 1 of the show best implements this very structure of episodic storytelling. It's key to note how this episode begins and concludes in order to appreciate how well the show implements the structure. At the beginning of the session, Spike and Jet are depicted in separate rooms, both possessing low-key lighting, causing harsh shadows to be casted on Spike as he practices his martial arts, and to be casted on Jet while he prepares dinner for the two. We find out later in session 12 of the show that the two have been working together for the past 3 years.
It's been 3 years since I teamed up with you, but I never knew you had such ridiculous ideas about this thing. What a joke!
So it's best to assume that they have just come back from a hard day's work of catching bounty heads. This choice of lighting is able to inform us that their latest pursuit of a bounty head ended on a rough note without directly telling us. Fast forward to the end of Session 1, Spike and Jet are not depicted mourning over the tragic deaths of the episode, the brutal death of both Asimov and his wife Katrina. They are instead depicted doing the exact same things seen at the beginning of the episode. Spike tending to his martial arts, and Jet preparing the exact same dish. When juxtaposed to the beginning of the episode, this expresses the notion that the two simply don't have the emotional energy to dwell on others' past. The two have spent it all on their own past during the 3 years of bounty hunting. One notable difference, however, is that Spike has moved to the ship's upper level. He begins to sharply stare at his lifeless reflection, which suddenly shifts to a surprised gaze. This alteration in facial expression conveys the very moment Spike comes to realize that he almost got too emotionally attached to Katrina, as she herself opened up to him, telling him her ambitions that involve starting a new life on Mars. Her ambitions and her inability to achieve them as a result of her unforeseen death also reminds Spike of his own past with his former lover Julia. They had also planned to run away and start a new life together. The show's overarching plot for each of the 3 characters only comes into play when there are no bounty heads available for the team to pursue. In episodes where this occurs, we as an audience take over the role of the onlooker for Spike, Jet, or Faye, instead of witnessing them as onlookers. They no longer have bounty heads left to preoccupy themselves, forcing them to face their past. The show's overarching plot also has no relation to anything that's currently occurring in the present of the show. It instead involves unfinished business of each of the characters' past. Now that we as an audience are onlookers, the show reminds us of the consequences of becoming too attached to these characters. These episodes are where most of the show's emotional drama and character building and development are present. To add to this, the final episode of the show ends with the tagline, "You're gonna carry that weight," adding to the notion that we failed as onlookers and as a result are going to continue to mourn over the death of Spike as we carry through life.
I'm Jet Black, 36 years old. I'm often told I don't look 36, but you shouldn't judge people based on appearances or how much hair they have.
I love the show's hand-drawn animation and cinematography. Sure, I can admit that there are some shots within episodes where the characters don't look too hot, and the 3D animation hasn't really aged well and isn't really necessary. But the shots that really shine are the close-ups of characters, mostly their faces. The show is able to make these shots stand out as the characters are drawn with thicker outlines and more noticeable shading, while some also show imperfections in characters' skin. Having the shots so close to the character, combined with the mentioned techniques, allows for more detail to be drawn and seen. By either viewing this as a stylistic choice or an added layer of realism, there's no doubt that it aids in the visual delivery of characters' emotions. The show also implements the animation technique of squash and stretch to further intensify an action of a character, as if we can feel the action as it occurs on screen, and also aids in evoking the personality of a character such as Ed. The show takes advantage of the fact that it's a work of animation, as some of the camera angles seen would be very difficult to pull off on a live action production. Also, the genres mentioned before would be very budget heavy when implemented on a live action production. Countless props, sets, and costumes would need to be created, and CGI can be costly. I think this is the reason why a live action version of Cowboy Bebop has taken so long to be made. I can assure you that Netflix's version will fall short in conveying all these genres due to how costly it would be, and Netflix being known to cut corners. The show attempts to not allow for its 4:3 aspect ratio to restrict it, implementing a lot of panning to the left and right, tilts up and down, and use of extreme wide shots, all to evoke the scope of a setting.
I awake suddenly from my dream. There is no music box, and yet there it is, a tiny one nestled in my hand. And I awake from my dream again.
I love how perfectly casted the English dub is, as the voices go hand in hand with the designs of the characters and their overall personalities. I don't intend to disrespect the Japanese cast, but I personally believe you're discrediting yourself if you're fluent in English and chose to watch the show in Japanese for your initial viewing.
You trust your eyes too much, Asimov. You're not a chameleon, you know. You can't see everywhere at once.
Spike's English voice actor, Steve Bloom, delivers the majority of Spike's lines with a real complicated and heavy weight of tone to them during the majority of the show's scenes.
Planning to escape to Mars, huh? Go ahead and run. How far do you think you'll get?
He is then able to completely shift this tone during intense action scenes or comedic moments, giving Spike more of a cocky tone, ridding of the former weight of tone to make room for a lighter, playful sense of tone.
The red-eyed coyote will appear in the Zona Norte at the far end of town.
This creative decision by either Bloom or the English voice director goes hand in hand with Spike's character design, where Spike's messy, uneven hair, lanky body design, rolled up sleeves, and bright yellow shirt represent the playful and careless attitude of his character. The serious aspect of his character is represented through the sharp, formal blue suit he wears, which covers the yellow shirt. This idea that his yellow shirt represents his light-hearted side of character is further supported as we witness this side of character when he is either not wearing the blue suit jacket or it is hidden by some other clothing.
Yes, my dear.
The Linus mines, that's crazy! Stay away!
What'd you say?
Just stay away from Decker! He's hauling high explosives! Hello?
Hey, hold on!
Public yet?
Gotcha. Whoa!
Too long. Your story needs editing. Looking for this? Do you know how much you're worth?
What?
2.5 million wulongs. That's your bounty. I said you were a small fry.
This heavy tone of voice also goes hand in hand with the notion that Spike's past possesses a lot of weight to it, while bounty hunting allows him to remove himself from his past, embracing this playful tone of voice as both the tone and weight has been lifted. I'm probably going to completely butcher his name, but Jet's English voice actor, Bo Billingsley, provides Jet with a sense of tone that is identical to that of an upset, annoyed, but also loving parent figure, wanting the best for the Bebop team, his family. This is evident through his irritated tone of voice when having to deal with Spike and Faye's frantics of leaving the ship without notice.
Spike? Wait a minute, Spike. Hey, wait! Huh? Hey, hold on, Spike! That's a common woman's name. Come on now. What about Faye? We can't just leave her. This is a lawless region. A woman can't make it out there all alone.
Well, huh?
Pay up 6,300 wulongs.
What? Where did that come from, huh?
And his affection towards Ed and Ein.
A nice little collar, all right?
I hate kids and pets.
Ed, that's absolute perfection.
This portrayal of character mirrors Jet's character design. The jagged appearance of his murky blue jumpsuit, with its ripped sleeves and collar, represents his uptight personality, while the vibrant pink shirt underneath reflects his true intentions, his loving attitude as a parent figure for the Bebop team. These two differences in character are also expressed through the cold, robotic aspect of Jet, and how it makes up a lot less than his loving human side. Faye's English voice actress, Wendy Lee, gives Faye a tone of voice to where a sense of attitude through laziness and selfishness is present, layering it all with a sense of mystery.
Quite an elaborate way to get acquainted.
I want my reward in nice crisp bills, you know what I'm saying? Look who's here, you must really want me back.
This shifts to a sense of innocence by the end of the show. The former reflects Faye's uncertainty of her past, where her tone of voice conveys a sense of attitude to it in an attempt to conceal herself and those surrounding her from this very uncertainty. Once Faye finally recalls her past and longs for belonging, she completely ditches this false performance of her life, which was present through her overall personality and tone of voice, in favor of a more pure outlook on life as she alters the two.
What?
I'm sorry. I finally remember where it is that I belong.
You belong.
Yes, Ed.
There was no place for me to return to. This was the only place I could go. And now you're leaving, just like that.
This uncertainty of character reflects Faye's character design due to its contrasting elements that don't seem to match each other. Sure, the yellow of her clothes and headband when compared to the purple of her hair complement each other since both yellow and purple are complementary colors, opposites on the color wheel. But the real mess of her character and its design is conveyed through the conflicting, random colors of her red jacket, blue boots, and pink leggings. Ed's English voice actress, Melissa Phan, delivers Ed's lines in an eccentric, over-the-top fashion, reminding us that she's the youngest member of the Bebop team. This childlike aspect of character is further supported through her random lines of gibberish, talking to herself, and repetitions in words or phrases. Ed isn't your typical child though. Her actions mentioned make her seem a lot younger than she really is, especially when referring to herself in the third person, which completely contradicts her intelligence as a computer hacker, undermining the fact that she's probably the smartest of the group. Her character design mirrors this personality through her bright red, messy, pointed hair, representing her over-the-top nature, her red cheeks representing her innocence and childlike nature, and her goggles representing her overall intelligence.